Honorable steward.
How do you lead a society on the brink of collapse? That's the big question Frostpunk 2 throws at you right from the start. This sequel, developed by 11-Bit Studios, throws you back into the frost-covered world of the critically acclaimed original. But this isn't just about building a city. It's about balancing hope and order, making tough decisions, and surviving when the odds are stacked against you. There was a lot of hype around this release, and I'll be honest, I never played the first Frostpunk. So I came into this one with a fresh perspective, no baggage, and no idea of what to expect. What I found was a grueling survival city builder that's as much about managing people as it is about managing resources. You're not just keeping track of coal and food, you're dealing with political conflicts, ethical dilemmas, and the very real challenge of keeping everyone alive. Frostpunk 2 is set in an alternate reality Earth in the 1900s where a volcanic winter has covered the world in ice. You take on the role of the steward of New London, a city barely scraping by to maintain some semblance of safe and prosperous human life in this frozen wasteland. But survival here isn't just about keeping the lights on, it's about managing a delicate, interconnected web of systems, each one as vital as the last. At the heart of the game is resource management. Coal, food, oil, and other materials are the lifeblood of New London's survival. Gathering and distributing these resources is a constant balancing act, and every choice about allocation carries a heavy weight. You're also tasked with managing your population and workforce. These aren't just faceless numbers, they're people with hopes, fears, and breaking points. Whether it's assigning workers to critical tasks, addressing illness, or trying to maintain morale, every decision ripples through the city and shapes how your people view you as a leader. Then there are the factions and politics, which add another layer of complexity to the game. New London isn't at all a united front. It's divided by conflicting ideologies. Do you side with the stalwarts who believe industrial progress and automation are the keys to beating the cold, or do you align more closely with the pilgrims who seek to embrace the cold and spread humanity across the frozen expanse? Every choice can create alliances or ignite unrest, making political navigation as critical as resource management. These decisions also tie closely into the laws and research systems. Laws guide your city's morale and ethical compass, whether you rule with compassion or an iron fist. Research unlocks vital technological advancements, but often requires tough trade-offs between progress and stability. Your success or failure ultimately comes down to managing the relentless challenges of disease, squalor, hunger, crime, and of course, the cold. Cramped and cold living conditions means illness spreads quickly, and keeping your city healthy requires constant attention. Do you invest in upgraded housing and medical facilities, or gamble on short-term fixes to save resources? Hunger is another ever-present threat. Balancing food production with rationing is a constant struggle, especially when supplies run low. Do you implement harsh rationing laws to stretch what little you have, risking widespread discontent, or do you keep bellies full, even if it means depleting your stores and leaving your city vulnerable? Crime and unrest can spiral out of control if your people lose faith in you or the system. Building guard posts or enforcing strict laws might keep rebellion at bay, but it could also paint you as a tyrant. Do you prioritize security and control, or try to maintain fairness and equality at the risk of losing order? And then there's the cold, the ever-present enemy. Freezing temperatures drain resources and force tough decisions about where to direct heat. Do you direct precious power to the homes of the sick and elderly, or to the factories that keep your city running? The beauty and the stress of Frostpunk 2 is that there are no clear right answers to any of these questions. Every system is interconnected, and every choice has consequences. Survival isn't just a goal, it's a constant balancing act where even small missteps can send everything spiraling out of control. The story in Frostpunk 2 is fairly straightforward. How is New London going to set itself up as a long-term haven for human flourishing? Who will emerge as the big decision makers, and who or what will need to be sacrificed along the way? The campaign is broken up into chapters that present you with specific objectives to complete, while managing everything else we already talked about. These objectives range from simple tasks like upgrade the furnace or stockpile food for the next storm to massive game-changing decisions that redefine the vision of New London and the loyalty of its factions. The game leans heavily on player choice, making it incredibly engaging and highly replayable. The minimalist soundtrack amplifies the weight of every decision, underscoring the desperation of the city. Visually, the game's stark, icy landscapes and the intricate details of your city's growth reflect the fragile balance you're trying to maintain. Adding to the atmosphere, a voice periodically speaks over the city's loudspeaker, announcing laws or key events in a calm, almost eerie tone that reinforces the sense of being under constant watch and pressure.
Secure additional layers. A cold season is imminent.
While the primary narrative is engaging for sure, I'd argue the real story is told in every action a player takes. For example, early in my playthrough, I was desperate for a larger labor force. I didn't have enough workers to keep my city functioning, and population growth was stagnant. When my scouts discovered a tribe of a couple of thousand people surviving off the land, I invited them back to New London, hoping they'd join the workforce and I could get some stuff done. In my haste, I failed to consider that I didn't have the housing or resources to support so many new people. The overcrowding and lack of food caused disease to skyrocket, forcing me to enact a dehumanizing law requiring all infected citizens to wear badges, marking them as contagious in hopes of slowing the spread. Months of in-game time were spent fighting to contain the chaos as death swept through the city and political factions began to lose faith in my leadership. What's remarkable about Frostpunk 2 is that story wasn't part of any predetermined narrative. It wasn't something handed to me in a cutscene or written in the game's objectives. Instead, it played out entirely in my head, shaped by my choices and the cascading consequences that followed. The game uses limited visuals and no traditional cinematics, yet it manages to craft deeply personal and emotional stories for every player. In Frostpunk 2, the story isn't just something you follow, it's something you create with every decision you make. Frostpunk 2 is designed to be challenging. The game even starts with a little disclaimer letting you know that you're meant to struggle. This kind of difficulty isn't something you see every day in modern games, especially in city builders, where many titles lean towards creativity and a relaxed management system. But here, struggle isn't just a part of the experience, it's the whole experience. I'll admit, I didn't heed that warning. I cranked it straight up to the hardest difficulty setting and proceeded to get absolutely wrecked. From resource shortages to freezing citizens, everything that could go wrong did. While I managed to claw my way through the game, it was a humbling experience to say the least. Even the easier difficulties don't give you much breathing room. They're still challenging enough to keep you on edge and force you to think critically about every decision. The community echoes this sentiment, with players suggesting that starting on a lower difficulty is the best way to learn the game's intricate systems before diving into the more punishing settings. One of my favorite parts of the game, however, is how this difficulty seamlessly pairs with the harsh setting and themes of Frostpunk 2. The difficulty doesn't feel arbitrary or unfair. Instead, it reinforces the weight of leadership in a world where every choice has life or death consequences. It's this perfect alignment of challenge and narrative that makes each moment feel so meaningful and immersive. Frostpunk 2 is a game that pulls no punches. It's harsh, unforgiving, and relentless, but that's exactly what makes it so compelling. The setting, with its frozen wastelands and constant battle for survival, is beautifully tied to the mechanics. Every decision you make, whether it's how to allocate heat, feed your people, or manage factions, feels like it has real weight. The difficulty isn't just there to test your skills, it's there to immerse you in the desperation and complexity of leading a society that is on the edge of collapse. The campaign gives you objectives and a general direction, but the real story plays out in the choices you make and the consequences you face. It's in the overcrowded shelters, the laws you pass, and the sacrifices you're forced to make. Frostpunk 2 doesn't need elaborate cinematics or flashy cutscenes to tell its story. It's all happening in your head as you try to piece together a future for New London. If you're looking for a city builder that challenges you, makes you think, and keeps you engaged with its rich themes and mechanics, Frostpunk 2 is absolutely worth your time. It's not just a game about survival, it's a game about leadership, sacrifice, and hope in the coldest of worlds. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. And until next time, cheers.